Yeah. She just so
No, what? Let me move to this. No, I have to be back to this.
yes.
Mine.
45.
Because I need to get up.
My Twitter.
Rachel, go sit next to Linda. There's a seat there.
She ate it.
Is what?
Oh my
They're
God.
gone already?
No, I just got it from
Now.
We did.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. We had it. Oh my God, you're welcome. I'm eating it and saying these are delicious. And then Charles, I don't think. Oh my God. You're really proud.
I guess mom I'll understand.
Is there another resume? Yes.
Key. There's a seat here.
I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting to see what's. I think they wanted me to help with.
Oh.
So, but thank you. I appreciate that.
You know, it's
Ladies and gentlemen, we are on service time. If I can invite the pallbearers forward to the hearse. And everyone else, if I can remind you to please turn off your cell phones for the service.
That's the family is sitting there.
okay. No. Do you girls want to go? Just walk behind. Yeah, don't go do it. Go do it. There's your buddy. We'll begin our service formally in just a moment. We take this first opportunity to change your status before we arrive at the moment when we get to say goodbye. The moment of tearing is a moment that helps us to transition between what was and what will be. There's a lot of reasons why we tear at a Jewish funeral. We talk about tearing because we're a physical people and this hurts. And when hearts are broken, it helps to tear or rip or break something else. This is a tear in the fabric of your family. That is very real. And so we tear to acknowledge that. And we also tear to change your status as people who have, for the last several days, been unexpectedly enveloped in the work of planning a funeral. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of decisions and logistics and practicalities. And what we get to do now is remind you that you're done. You did it. He's here and you're here, and the people who need to be here with you are here. And so we tear to acknowledge that you have taken care of everything that you need to take care of. And we hope that now you will let us take care of you. And so you're going to repeat the following words after me, and then we will tear just a little bit on that ribbon. We're going to say Adonai Natan, the Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem, Adonai Mevorach. God gives and God takes away. Blessed be the name of God. Go ahead and give your ribbon just a little bit of a tear. You can have finished. Started. Say Baruch, Dayan, Ha'emet. Praise are you, Adonai, Judge of. And so we begin our service this morning, and I thank you all so much this afternoon. I thank you all so much for being here and taking the time to be with this beautiful family as we say goodbye to Maxine, Tatz. I'm Rabbi Emily Hyatt, and it has been my honor for the last 24 hours to get to know a little bit about Mackie, to get to hear her story and her life and the truly unique, I think, human that she was, has been a huge privilege for me. We have the sad obligation, but also the honor of laying her to rest today and saying goodbye. There are essentially three parts of a Jewish funeral that we will participate in today. The first thing that we do is prepare ourselves for the hard work of saying goodbye through our tradition, our psalms and songs and prayers. The second thing that we do is to tell a little bit of the story of her life, something that we actually cannot do until we know how her story ends, which we do now. And so we begin to tell that story. And then the third piece of what we do is say goodbye to her physical presence here with us. And so we begin with these words of our tradition, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness and loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude and pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith From defeat to defeat to defeat until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. And with that, we turn to the words of the Psalms. And our Psalms are parts of our text that help us to navigate hard moments and bring us strength. And in particular, we turn to Psalm 23, which is so often a part of our moments of grief. And I will tell you, there is something about today that just feels, I don't know, on purpose. This particular psalm has a really famous line in it. It says, as we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. And it has been our sages, I don't know, one of the things that they spend a lot of time doing is working through the words of each of our texts. And so that line, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. We know that death casts a shadow. It feels so dark and so not like we can see the light, especially the light of a person like Mackie when we have lost her. And this week has been so cold and so gray and so full of snow and freezing temperatures. And I don't think it's an accident that today is this like beautiful, cloudless, warm day. It's, I don't know, 60 degrees warmer than it was several days ago. Because our job, even when we feel the shadow that blocks us from that light, is to look for that light and to find it, to find all of the light that Mackie brought to you and to your lives and to your friends or your family. And when we feel the heat of that sunshine and it gets unblocked, it's just a little bit easier to find. I'll share with you the words of Psalm 23. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, bino deshayar bitzeni, al mei menuchot yana haleni, nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'magalet tzedek lema'an shemo, gam ki elech b'gates al mavet, lo ira ra ki ata imadi, shivtecha umishantecha, hema yenachamuni, Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sorarai, dishanta b'shem en roshi, kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni, kol yamei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. God, you lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. And even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. I want to share with you the words of one more poem, which is a poem by a poet named Merritt Malloy that I was thinking of when you were telling me about Mackie and her life last night. It's called When I Die. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. So look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands and souls touch souls, by letting go of children that need to be free. Remember, love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. So I invite you for just a moment as we prepare in just a moment to hear the story of Mackie's life, to take a moment of silence, to think about, if you knew her, what is the piece of her that you so deeply want to keep and want to give away to others around you. We take this moment of silence. Shir lema'alot esa einai el heharim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim ba'aretz. Al yiten lamot raglecha al yanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomercha, Adonai tzilcha al yad yaminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yareach b'layla. Adonai yishmarcha v'korah, yishmar et nafshecha. Adonai yishmar tzeitecha u'bolecha, me'ata ve'ad olam. Psalm 121, a song for ascents. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way, and your guardian will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian, your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. Guard your life, guard your going and your coming, now and forever. And so we turn now to the story of Mackie's life, and that task of telling the story is one that is it's such a beautiful project. On so many of the stones that you see around you, the tombstones or the headstones that you see, one of my favorite parts of those stones is that often in between the date of birth of a person who is deceased and the date of death, there is a lot of times a little dash. And it's funny because we recognize in such big letters a date that began it all and a date that that ended it all. And in the middle, all there is that tiny little dash. And that holds all of it, all of the rest of it. It holds for Mackie 80 years of life and of love and of family and of travel and of adventure. And so our job is to look at that tiny little dash today and see what we can find in it that we will lift up to be her legacy. And so there are a lot of people who are going to help us to tell the story today of Mackie's life. And I'm going to call up Aiden to start.
When I first found out Bubby passed away, I didn't believe it. How could someone that was such an important, constant part of my life be gone just like that? The last few days, I've thought about what she means to me. Since I was born, she's always been there for me. My entire life, she was at every big moment. She was at all my graduations, and she was there the first time I won a big karate tournament. Whenever I had something major going on in my life, she would always be there. She wasn't only at big moments, she was there whenever I needed her. I remember when I was in middle school, I would get sick a lot and have to leave school. And whenever I needed to be picked up, she was there, no matter what. She was there whenever I had a karate tournament, big or small. She was there whenever her grandchildren had something going on. When I lived with her a few months ago, she would talk about how much she loved going to Abby's cheerleading competitions and Chelsea's basketball games. She was not only proud of her grandchildren that lived near her, but also the ones that lived far away. She was always talking about how she was proud of Matt and how he was so amazing at the tuba. And Jackie, she was so proud of you for being a nurse, and she was so excited for your wedding. She also was so excited when she found out she was going to be a great bubby with Finn and then again with Ash. Harry, she would not only say how much she loved you, but she proudly showed it. She had all of your architecture models around her house, And a few days ago in her drawer, we found your architecture floppy disk. She took every opportunity to express how much she loved you. She loved and was extremely proud of every single one of her 9 grandchildren. She was not only a bubby to her grandchildren, she was such a loving bubby to all of Harry, Abby, and Chelsea and my friends. And she was bubby and this loving bubby to all of our cousins. I spent so much time with Bubby in my life, and I loved every single moment you came to dinner to play cards or just to watch General Hospital. Going on trips and cruises with you was one of the great highlights of my life. The past few days, I've been thinking about how sad I am you won't be able to see me get married or meet my children. But this loss makes me so grateful for the 22 years I got to spend with you. I cherish every single moment I spent with you and love you so much. It's going to be so hard living in a world without you. I'm going to go through life with the lessons you taught me, the love you gave me, and the kindness you showed everyone. I love you so much. It is a crisp Sunday evening. Dad just finished cooking dinner. Each space on the table has a knife and a fork sitting on a paper napkin, and everyone has taken their usual seats. I'm sitting at the head of the table. To my left is Mom, next to her is Dad, followed by Zadie at the other head of the table. Continuing clockwise is Bobby, then Aiden to my right. Below the table, the dogs are begging for scraps of food while everybody has started to dig into their chicken farm. We would all be talking about exciting events from the week and have a laugh at something that Bubby just said. After dinner, I would stay downstairs, maybe transferring to the couch instead of the table. The adults would help clean up and Bubby would wipe down the table with a blue sponge. You could pick any week from the first 18 years of my life and would almost be guaranteed to find this scene. At the time, I never really thought anything of it. This was just the way it was. Years later, this typical Sunday dinner scene is what comes to my mind when I try to think about how the world is supposed to be. Sure, anyone can cook dinner and sit around a table with 6 people on a Sunday night. I'm sure many of you have. What made these moments special was the people that it was with and the culmination of experiences we shared. Bubby was there for everything my entire life. I can't even begin to list out everything that we experienced with her, so I let Aiden do that. Even though she was technically only the Bubby or grandma to 9, all of the friends of my brother, cousins, and myself would call her Bubby. Even some adults too. Bubby was adored by all. When I was in high school, I used to go over to her house and hang out with her during my off periods. Eventually, my friends started to come over and hang out with Bubby too. I mean, what high schoolers want to hang out with an old lady? But she wasn't just an old lady, she was Bubby. She did not act like an old lady, that's for sure. One time when we were outside with the neighborhood kids playing wiffle ball, Bubby decided to join in the fun. She ended up playing way too hard and broke her arm. As a kid, the highlights of my year would always involve Bubby in some type of travel, whether it was a sleepover down the street or a cruise in Europe. Bubby's presence always made every adventure special. When Bubby, Zadie, Mom, Dad, Aiden, and myself would travel the world together, we would always get 2 rooms. Without question, I would always be the child staying in the room with Bubby and Zadie. To this day, I don't really know why I was always the one to stay with them, but I will always be grateful for that time. Eventually, I left for college, and as it tends to do, my world changed drastically. Over time, the weekly family dinners became infrequent and eventually stopped. The Sunday dinner table conversations turned into separate Sunday phone calls, where I would chat with Bubby and Zadie about my week. Then eventually just Bubby about my week. And now, I guess this Sunday, all of you. Yeah, this week wasn't great. Even though those Sunday dinners are long gone, I will never forget what they meant to us. And though I know they can't happen anymore, I will still hold out hope that one day I would be able to come back home and the 6 of us would sit around the table once again. I will miss you forever, Bubby.
When Mindy and Michael asked me to speak here today, I kept thinking, what can I possibly say about Mackie that hasn't been said or that you have not thought about? I tried to remember that one special memory, but I could not. And that's because every memory I have of Mackie is so very special. Dennis and I met Mackie and George about 27 years ago at a function which was for the Highlands Ranch Empty Nesters. We went to a dinner with about 20 couples. And of all the people there, we were especially drawn to Mackie and George. It could have been because of George and Dennis's backgrounds of being born and growing up in New York. And Mackie and I have that special connection of Israel. But I think it was just because they were such a special couple and so easy to love. We invited them for coffee the next day, and the rest is history. Mackie quickly became the sister of my heart. My kids thought of her as their aunt, more than just their mother's friend. And of course, she was Booby Mackie to so many, but also to my grandson, Max. Mackie always kidded around and said I was her sister from a different sister, and Dennis was her brother from a different mother. We felt the same. In the last year, since George passed, Dennis kept referring to us as his sister wives. Mackie's kids and grandkids were the most important things in her life, but she still found room in her heart for the rest of us. She had many groups of friends that were all blessed to have her in their lives. She was one of the easiest people to love. Whoever she met felt an immediate kinship with her. She made everyone in her circle feel special and loved. The times that we spent together with Mackie, whether on a cruise, a road trip, trips to Las Vegas, Saturday night dinners every week, birthday celebrations, or holidays with our little group will remain with us as the most special time spent with a very special person. Our Mahjong game will never be the same. And Black Hawk and the Ship's Casino will never seem the same for me. I'm especially going to miss the phone emoji that she would send me many times at 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning, just to let me know she's up and she's ready to talk. One of the last things Mackie said to me, and that was on Thursday, we booked a cruise to the British Isles. We were discussing the cost of it, and she said to me, life is too short. We are not getting any younger, and we need to do everything we want to before it's too late. Little did she know how true that statement was. Heed those words, enjoy your lives, make certain all those you love know how much they are loved and appreciated. Mackie and George had 40 wonderful years together, and we all know how much she missed him. Our friend Denise and I had lunch with Mackie this past Wednesday. And Mackie's phone rang, and it was a ring that was obnoxious, that we've never heard before. The phone rang, and it was quack, quack. And Denise and I started laughing, and we asked Mackie, what the heck is that ring all about? And she said, I could hear George when I hear that ring, because he always called me Mac, Mac. That was a way of keeping him close to her heart. The strangest thing is, this morning, a memory popped up on my Facebook. The strange thing about it was that memories usually pop up a year, 2 years, 10 years after the actual date. Well, this post was from July 23rd, 2014. How it popped up today? We celebrated our wedding anniversary by going up the mountain with George and Mackie. And then we had dinner in town. I truly believe with all my heart that this was a message from Mackie, telling me that she is with George, or as we called him, Gorgeous George. Every time a memory popped up on her Facebook that had George's name and George's picture there, she would say, "He's talking to me." Mackie, I got the message. You were telling me you are going to be. We all love you and will miss you for the rest of our lives, but it's your time to be with George now. In spite of all the pain we are feeling now, I guess George did come for you. And I'm sure that you are together again, cruising on a glorious ship in heaven. We all wish we could have had you in our lives longer, but we are so blessed and grateful to have had you for the time that we did. Goodbye, sister of my heart, my best love. I will miss you forever.
This is easy.
Oh.
Which is ironic because it's the first line of my speech. This should be the easiest job on earth. I get to eulogize Mackie Tatz, who just happened to be the most fun, kindest, generous, and caring person I'll ever meet. I could tell you she was the best mom, hubby, mother-in-law, friend, sister, friend's mom in the world. But most of you already know that. While all of this would make for an amazing person who everyone would always want to spend time with, it's not what made her the best mom in the world. To be loved by this woman was truly special. It means you were loved unconditionally. I mean, there were no strings at all. Believe me, I probably tested the limits when I tell you I could be a real dick. There was not one day in my life that I wasn't 100% positive that my mother loved me. No matter how mad she was at me or how bad we were fighting, my mom's unconditional love was her superpower. The unconditional love always got me through tough times and gave me the confidence to know I always had an emotional backstop. It means you always had an ear to talk to, a shoulder to cry on, no matter how dark the time or happy the occasion. It also means that anyone you loved had that same ear and that same shoulder. That ear and shoulder should be put in the Emotional Hall of Fame, as it's seen a lot of action in her 80+ years. There was one catch. If you ever got a text from her saying, "Is everything okay?" you knew you were in trouble. My guess was you forgot to tell her that you got to your location safely and she was worried sick. As great as it was to talk to her in bad times, there was no better person to share great news with. Your great news was her great news. If you were having a baby, she was having a baby. She brought so much joy to everybody around her, whether it was her great story or yours. She was genuinely happy for your happiness. Mom, you are the best mom on earth. When I say thank you for being my mom, excuse me, I mean thank you for being my confidant, best friend, and hero. You're one of a kind, and the world is a little dark today without your bright light in it. Please continue to watch over all of us and enjoy your time with Zadie. We love you so much.
As I stand up here, I can't believe that we're saying goodbye to Mom. It just doesn't feel real. I can't imagine not being able to call her with good news or even just to give her the latest gossip. No more sitting with her and discussing all the great things going on in the boys' lives or planning the next cruise with her. No more having to put her hand on my shoulder and telling me she was my good luck charm as I played the slots. No more coming for dinner. No more going on our runs together to the grocery store and the mall. No more dissecting the latest plot on the soaps or giving a running commentary of who looked good or bad and guessing what would happen next. No more watching videos of the places we would go together and planning our next big trip. No more belting out Broadway tunes with her in the car. No more playing our very competitive games of 500. No more sharing big life events with Harry and Aiden. No more spending time with my mom for no reason at all. It just doesn't seem real. I've been so lucky to have my mom as my champion, my cheerleader, and my positive role model. And most of all, my best friend. She gave me the confidence to be who I am and not be afraid to do anything. We traveled the world together with so much love and laughter. And as my mom always said, we have such a special bond. As most of you knew, we were leaving on Tuesday to go to Australia and Mom was coming with us. John and I were so excited to be able to have another first with Mom. What son-in-law actually invites his mother-in-law on almost every single vacation? John and Mom had such a special, beautiful bond too. He would even text her every time he landed per her orders and say, the plane didn't crash. Mom was so excited to go and hold a koala and go to the glowworm caves. Now, when we finally get to go someday, it just won't be the same without her. I can't believe she won't be there for the boys and the girls' weddings, all of the great grandchildren that she would have had, and all the birthdays and other life events. I'm so thankful that I was lucky enough to have my mom in my life for 53 years, but it just wasn't enough. I loved how she was such a huge part of Harry and Aiden's lives, and always showing her kindness and love made them better men with huge hearts just like her. How lucky they were to have their Bubby, and they knew it too. They always loved spending time with Bubby and Zadie, and even when they went off to college and lived their grown-up lives, they still FaceTimed her almost every week just to check in. Anyone who knew Mom loved her, whether it was a new friend or a friend of 70 years. They would say she was the sweetest, kindest person with the biggest heart. She was so giving and kind to everyone, and everyone here knows it. Mom was just a good person. She took care of George for 4 years with love, laughter, and kindness. Not always kindness, but most of the time. This kindness extended even after with the dementia support groups. She would continue to stay and help the people even after George had passed. I would ask her, why does she continue even after he's gone? And she says, because I've lived through this and I can help other people go through what I've been through. Mom was always so giving, and she had a heart bigger than anyone I know. I'm sure this is why so many people loved her and why she had so many friends. It's amazing how much love I've seen these last few days from her friends who knew her from childhood in Minnesota to her friends in New Jersey. And Jersey girls, I am wearing her bracelet that was part of your friendship, and all of her Denver friends that she's met in the last 30 or so years here. You have been so kind and supportive to our family because you loved our mom so much, and we all know that. I have loved hearing and reliving all the stories of Mom, and I'm not just saying this, I truly mean this. Please share more stories that we didn't know. We've been finding out so many funny things over the past few days that we didn't know, or Mom didn't want to tell us at the time, but please keep sharing. since I promised my brother I wouldn't be more than a few minutes, I need to wrap it up before I get played off, because Mom would be laughing at that too, as we were planning to watch the Oscars in Australia. I'm just so thankful for all the time my family and I had spent with Mom, whether it was traveling all over the world or just hanging out at home. My mom and I talk so many times every day that I just can't imagine how I will get through the day without calling her and even telling her about today and all the people who were here today. She would have just loved to see you all. Never did I think losing a mom unexpectedly could be a reality. We always joked that she had a good 5 to 10 years left. She was going to travel, spend time with her friends and family, and make the most of it. She talked about all the trips she was planning to New York and seeing the boys. And she was talking about going to Israel with Chelsea and Abby again. One last thing I will say to everyone is enjoy every precious moment with your mom, your family, and everyone you love. And never forget to say I love you, because you never know when it will be your last time. Thanks.
Thank you all for sharing such beautiful words with us and for sharing your view of Mackie, how you saw her and what space she took up in your world. For 2 minutes, I'm filling in the pieces. She was born in Minnesota. She was born to Sid and Grace. She had older brothers, Harvey and Sherman, with whom she was very, very close. And from early in her childhood, she had a really close-knit group of friends and family that provided her a strong sense of belonging and support. She loved the outdoors and spent a lot of her childhood playing and being outside. She was a jock and a cheerleader. She lived in a lot of different places. When she was a child, her family moved to California for a little while. When she was in high school, they were in Canada when she was 5 to try and avoid the polio epidemic. She graduated back in Minnesota from St. Louis Park High School. She went to University of Minnesota and then to Elmhurst College in Chicago and then to Tel Aviv University, where she got her associate's degree, but also I think began and probably reinforced her deep love of Israel. And she met her first husband when she was at the University of Minnesota. They married in 1966 when she was 22. They went together to Chicago and then to Tel Aviv, and then from there to Austria, and then from Austria to Union, New Jersey. And along those travels, Mindy and Michael were both born. After she got divorced, she spent a lot of time working and focusing on how to be the best mom she could be, which is not an easy task for a single mom. For 7 years after that, she raised the kids in a 2-bedroom apartment, working in a number of different jobs, including a food service job, which would eventually lead her to George. She always put her kids before anyone else. She was an awesome mom. And straight from their mouths, she beautifully prioritized her kids, and they had such a great childhood. And yet, even in those moments, I think there was probably no moment that wasn't an opportunity for an adventure. After she and George got married, they went on their honeymoon to Italy, went down the Venice Canal, went to Rome, and eventually ended up following family out here to Colorado in 1993, once Michael was out of the house and in college. And then everybody eventually followed her back out here, and the whole family ended up here in Colorado and Highlands Ranch. And then there was some going and some coming and some leaving and some returning, as we do in Colorado. And my favorite part about it is that she made such a life for herself here in Denver, even having had such a life in other places. And I think that the story of Mackie's life for me, when she moved here, she built up all of these relationships and she settled and she nested. And I think her lesson for me is that there is actually not a cap on the amount of adventure you can have, on the amount of love that you can have, on the number of friends that you can have, and on the love that you can give out to other people. There was such an enormous amount of that love that was shared with me. And yet I know that even with all of those friends and her family and her grandkids and all of that love, she would walk into a store and become best friends with the person in the store and collect another person. And so we know that there's a lot of things that you all are going to hold on to. You're going to hold on to all of the travel opportunities that you had, and those moments of being out of right time with her without the regular obligations of life, and how different it is to spend time with someone like that. I heard about lunch dates at Black Rock Coffee and Panera, and I heard about Golda's for ice cream in Israel, and I heard about cruises, and then I heard about going back to Israel a million more times. And I think there's a lot that you're going to notice and you're going to miss because she's not with you. And my blessing for you as her family is that you take those pieces of her legacy, that little dash that holds all of that travel and all of the travel that she booked and didn't get to do, and you do it. And you take that adventure and you give away all of the love that you would have given to her, to the people that you meet. She was never still, you said. And I hope that you, in her memory, continue that legacy, that you go out and you find a new adventure and you give a little love out while you do it. And you can take that right in that tiny little dash. It's very travel sized. Just put it right in your pocket and take it with you. And so we turn now to the hardest part, which is saying goodbye to Mackie's physical presence with us here. Adonai Natan Adonai Lakafi Shem Adonai Mevorach Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Yatzar Etchem B'Tuvo V'Hamit Etchem B'Din V'Natah B'Toratchem Chayei Olam Baruch Atah Adonai Dayan HaEmet. In just a moment, we'll have the opportunity to say our memorial prayers. Before we do that, we have an obligation that in Jewish tradition, I think is one of the most beautiful things we do and one of the hardest things that we do. And that is that we participate in the filling of the grave of our loved one ourselves with our own bodies. It feels impossible. It sounds impossible, and it breaks our hearts to do it. And yet it is one of the things, the very few things that we have in life that we get to give to another person that we know is just because we want to give it to them. She cannot say thank you for this gift that you give her. And one of the things that I was thinking about, we think about this tradition in a lot of different ways, but as a devoted and selfless mom and grandma and friend, but specifically as a mom and grandma, I have to imagine that she spent a lot of nights in her life tucking people into bed and making sure that they were safe and sound and peaceful and cozy. And essentially that's what we give back to her today. We don't just count on it that she's going to be safe and sound here, though we know she will. We physically participate in tucking her in with the blanket of earth that we know will protect her. And so we are going to invite up sort of in descending order here, and then anybody that wants to participate, first her children, to help to fill her grave.
No, she went to find, oh, she wanted to do.
Something you want to do. It's the first one is a protest.
Why?
Stephen told me.
Why?
The first show we can do upside.
Right. You did? You did that?
Yeah, let's go grab the box and come back and get where he wants to go to.
Do you have the rocks?
They're in the car.
Okay. They brought rocks because he's not and that's my grandson. Both my parents and both his parents are in the next section. So he's going to get to see my grandson. I think it was on the 40th. No, there's a sheet. There's a sheet with directions.
It's not very far from here if you just get on 225.
225 to Yosemite, and then south, then east
I remember going from
on
here.
Orchard, then, I mean, there's a few towns.
This was easy.
Right, so.
We rise as we are able for our memorial prayers. El Mali Rachamim, Shofin V'Amonim, Hamsei Menucha Nefona Tafat Manfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Utehorim Kezohar, Harakia Mazirim, Et Nishmat Malka Bat Simcha V'Gittel, Shehalecha Le'olamah, Bala Rachamim Yasireha, Beseter Knafav Le'olamim, Vayitzror B'Tzror HaChaim Et Nishmata, Adonai Hu Nachalata, V'Tanuach B'Shalom Al Mishtava, Le'nomar, Amen. God of abundant mercy, God most high, may the soul of our loved one who has gone into eternity find the gift of perfect peace in your embrace, together with the holy and pure whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold her close to you forever so that her soul may be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May she find a home with you, and may she rest in peace. And together we say, Amen. And we turn now to the words of the mourner's Kaddish, words that say not one word about death or dying or missing or memory, but talk only of the beauty of life and meaning and the ability to find that meaning by living fully. I feel like that's a pretty massive thing to think, that these final words are words of love and opportunity, words that lift up memory for us, but really speak about the world and what it could be. So we join together with these words of mourning. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma dibra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'le'omei almaya. Yitzbarach v'yishtabach v'yita'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha brichu. La'elam yimkol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran ve'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom v'romav Huya aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved, and let us say amen. And in a moment, we will conclude our service. I want to let you know that today after the service until 7 p.m., the family will be receiving visitors for Shiva at the home of Michael and Marla. It's 11636 East Maplewood Avenue in Inglewood, but there are cards over by the registry book on the stand that have directions and have this information if you don't have it. Go your way, for God has called you. Go your way, and may God be with you. May your righteousness go before you, and the glory light of God receive you. We conclude with words of comfort in our community. We say, we God comfort you amongst the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. We know that you are not the first to mourn, no, nor will you be the last, but we so hope that you find comfort in community and in knowing that there are so many gathered here today to lift you up and to lift up Nephew's memories and to be this journey of legacy with them. Thank you all so much for the honor of being here with you today.
I'll see you at the house.
Yeah.
Of course. Is this yours too?
No. I didn't need a coat. I'm telling you, it was so nasty.
Yeah. I was preparing for the worst.
Thursday night when the roads were so icy.
Oh, I'm sure.
And slippery. And it was 9:30, 40 to 20. I was awful. And I'm like, oh, I'm so afraid. Dennis was driving, thank God. And there was, oh my God. We had Thursday, between Thursday night and Friday morning, we had 5 inches of snow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's right.